All right, so are you ready to decode some serious financial lingo?
Let's do it. I'm all ears.
We're tackling the stock market today.
Hmm.
And, it can sound like a whole different language sometimes.
Oh, it definitely does.
Yeah.
All those terms and jargon can be pretty intimidating, but once you get the hang of the basics, it starts to make a lot more sense.
And that is exactly our mission today, to break down the need-to-know info so you can confidently navigate the financial world. Whether you're at a dinner party or just trying to understand the news, we got you covered.
You got it.
Okay.
And judging by the stack of articles you sent me, you've been doing some serious research.
Oh, yeah, I've been diving deep. And one term that keeps popping up everywhere is Dow Jones. Sometimes it's Dow Jones Industrial Average, sometimes just the Dow. It's like they use it to represent the whole stock market.
It's definitely the most famous index out there, even though it only tracks 30 companies.
30.
Yeah, just 30. But they're huge companies, like major players, blue chip companies. The ones you see advertised everywhere. Think household names.
Okay, so when someone says the Dow is up, it means these big companies are doing well. But is it really a good indicator of the overall market?
It can be, yeah. It gives you a general idea of where the market's headed, especially in the short term. But it's not the whole picture. Remember, it's just 30 companies,
Yeah.
and they might not represent what's going on in other parts of the economy.
Right. I mean, 30 companies can't tell you everything.
Exactly. And there's actually been a lot of debate about whether the Dow is even still relevant today. Some people think it might even be misleading.
Wow, okay, so if the Dow isn't the be-all, end-all, then what should we be paying attention to?
Well, you've got the S&P 500, which tracks 500 companies. So that gives you a much broader perspective. A lot of investors consider that a better benchmark for the overall U.S. market.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got the Dow and the S&P 500 giving us a snapshot of the market now. But how do we get a glimpse into the future? Like where things are headed. In your notes, you mentioned futures, and I got to say, those have always seemed a bit mysterious to me.
Yeah, futures can seem complicated at first, but think of them as like bets on the future price of something.
Bets, like gambling.
Kind of, but with a lot more analysis behind it. It could be stocks or oil, gold, you name it. Like, let's say you think the price of oil is going to go up next month. You could buy an oil futures contract, and if you're right, you make money.
So when I see headlines saying Dow futures are up, it means people are betting that the Dow Jones is going to rise.
Exactly. They're feeling optimistic about those 30 companies. But of course, it's all based on what traders believe will happen. There are no guarantees in the market, right?
Right, of course. So basically, if I'm seeing Dow Jones today versus Dow futures today, one is about right now and the other is a prediction about the future.
You got it. It's like the difference between looking at a map to see where you are now and using a compass to get a sense of where you might go next.
I love that analogy. It's all about direction. And speaking of maps, one thing that stood out to me in all these articles is how often the word market is used.
Yeah.
Stock market, U.S. stock market, futures market. It's almost overwhelming.
It can be, yeah. But think of market as just a place where things are bought and sold.
Okay, that's simple enough.
Right, so the stock market is where stocks are traded. The U.S. stock market is specifically in the U.S. And then you have specialized markets like the futures market, where those futures contracts we talked about are traded.
So it's like you need a modifier to know exactly what is being traded. Like knowing what store you're going to before you go shopping.
Exactly. You wouldn't walk into a bakery expecting to buy a car, would you?
No, but donut does sound pretty good right about now.
Yeah.
Okay, back on track. There's one more distinction I wanted to clear up. What exactly is the difference between the NYSE and the Dow? I see them mentioned almost interchangeably.
That's a good one. The NYSE, or New York Stock Exchange, is that iconic building with the columns. That's an actual physical place where stocks are traded. It's like the mall of the stock market, you could say.
The mall. Okay, I like that.
Right. And the Dow, on the other hand, is an index. It's a selection of stocks that are meant to represent a slice of the market. A lot of the companies in the Dow are traded on the NYSE, but not all of them.
Got it. So it's like saying, I went shopping at the mall versus I bought clothes from this specific brand. One is the location, the other is the product.
You nailed it. It's all about context.
This has been so helpful. I feel like I can actually understand these financial articles now.
That's great to hear.
What's the biggest takeaway you'd want our listener to walk away with today?
I think the most important thing is to remember that learning about the stock market is a journey. It's not something you learn overnight. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Keep reading and stay curious.
Couldn't agree more. And hey, you've already taken a huge step just by listening to this deep dive today. You're well on your way to becoming fluent in stock market lingo.
Absolutely. And remember, even the most experienced investors started somewhere. Everyone's a beginner at some point.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to leave you with something to think about. If the Dow Jones is basically a reflection of how those 30 companies are doing, how much influence do you think those companies have on the overall economy? We'll leave you with that thought. Until next time.